Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here again with all of you. I would like to introduce to you Luis Garcia-Bory, our next presenter. And Luis, just a second, has hosted or co-hosted study groups in London during 1998 to 2002. And over the past 15 years, he has attended various Urantia community activities in France, Germany, Poland, Hungary, Scotland, and Spain, in some cases as workshop host and moderator. Luis has had the privilege to serve as International Membership Committee Chair and member at Urantia Association International between 2017 and 2019, and during his term, he had the pleasure of visiting readers group and associations in Africa, Europe, and Latin America. Thank you, Luis. You are very, very welcome. Go ahead, please.
Okay, can you explain a little bit briefly the protocol? Briefly, Ginny.
Oh, yes, of course. Please, you mute yourself if you are not speaking to avoid disturbing background noises. If you want to talk, please raise your hand and unmute yourself. Please use the chat only for this session related questions, and use headphones if you can to improve sound quality and to reduce echo background noises when speaking. Please do not type when your microphone is not muted, because we all will hear your. The sessions are recorded on video for future study purpose use. Turn off your camera if you do not like your image being used for video records, and ask to speak off the record at any time when you do not want your say to be part of the video recording. In this way, your part will be cut out of the video during editing. Thank you very much. Thank you, Luis. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jeannie. And thank you to everyone involved in making today possible. I'm sure it's been a very rewarding number of sessions already. I cannot believe it's been 12 hours already. And
sorry, Luis, we cannot see you. We are seeing something.
Oh, sorry, I forgot that I...
Excellent. Nice to see you.
Hello, everyone. I forget that I cover that normally. It's great to see so many known faces and so many new faces. It's really a privilege and an honor to be here and have an opportunity to just really share some thoughts around what I call a positive shift in planetary consciousness, which is really related to everything that is happening in the world today with the global pandemic and how we are responding to that. My presentation is structured to basically run for about half an hour. So I will allow some time for questions at the end. I will start in a moment sharing a PowerPoint presentation. And these are just some reflections and perspectives based on what I have seen, what I can see particularly happening in Europe, which is where I am based. And by no means is trying to speak for what is happening everywhere else in the world. But I have seen also in the news and what I hear from other people, a lot of what I say seems to also be relevant and present in other places around the world. So I hope that if you have different perspectives or different views, you can share them after the session. I understand the questions are left normally towards the end. Or feel free, if I need to be interrupted, feel free to interrupt me. I would like this to be more of a conversation rather than a presentation per se. So let me start by sharing my presentation. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Let me kind of go to Zoom again for some reason. Never mind. Okay, so I will start now. The coronavirus pandemic of 2020 is likely to go down in the history of our planet as a moment in which most of us were urged to remember that Urantia is a self-contained living ecosystem. Where anything occurring in one part of the web will impact, one way or another, all of us in the biological environment in which we all coexist. This understanding, however, is not happening quietly. Struggle, pain, and suffering are present in many corners of our world. And the most grievous part is, of course, the loss of thousands of lives we are already witnessing. It is very likely that it will get much worse before it gets better. In many countries currently seriously affected by the pandemic, millions of people are being instructed to stay home as hospital and health services are stretched to their maximum capacity. Many poor countries struggle to even start the basic efforts needed to protect their people. Hysteria bubbles up and misinformation becomes rife. Panic dominates reason and irrational fear becomes commonplace. We empty grocery shelves and become obsessed with separation and individual safety. Our global supply of goods clogs up and economic calamity ensues. We start to understand that we are likely to witness the most severe economic depression of our lifetimes. Our places of work stop. Our cars stop. Our airplanes and trains stop. Our parks stop. Our places of worship and reunion and physical activity and leisure stop. To one degree or another, many aspects of our lives come to a full stop as we are forced to stay apart to contain the speed at which infection spreads. And this unexpected isolation brings about deep change in how we live our daily lives. Suddenly, we are forced to slow down and look at ourselves at home. Look at our own lives beyond our work environment and notice more our support systems and the lives of those around us. Rethinking of priorities beyond work deadlines and financial targets and personal and family ambitions. We are forced to stop and ponder the fact that our individual decisions and actions in relation to this pandemic will not only impact our loved ones in close proximity, but also our extended families and communities and other fellow humans far beyond our immediate spheres of interest, convenience, or influence. We are forced to remember that we are, paradoxically, dispensable and valuable, and our life is at the same time as fragile as it is resilient in the next person's. And that resilience and survival of the ecosystem can only be possible because we all form a network that glues together and brings stability to the whole. A conscious move from fear and inertia and inaction might be required from each one of us so that we faithfully elevate our planetary consciousness and live the individual selfhood-based realm of thinking in this pandemic and start reflecting on what the Urantia book calls a brotherhood ministry. A brotherhood ministry that focuses on unselfishly yielding fruits of the spirit. That might require the enhancing of our mindsets so that we add to the question of how is the pandemic going to affect me and my loved ones to what can I do myself and how can I collaborate with others to be helpful to a larger number of people around me, especially the most vulnerable. Individual spirit-led action will help us take tiny steps into the dawning of our planet's age of spiritual striving, and we can do this by taking various actions. The first one that I am sharing with you is progressive thinking. And here I would like to refer to paper 71 in what I am about to say. one of the first things we can do is recenter our energy towards progressive thinking and action, which includes greater intellectual keenness, economic wisdom, social cleverness, and moral stamina in the conquest of disease. These are actually literal words that come from the Urantia book. That in the conquest of disease, our intellectual keenness, greater economic wisdom, social cleverness, and moral stamina are called upon. And even as we have been revealed that humans are from the realization of the exalted ideals of progressive civilization, we are told that civilized races have made a beginning, that mankind is on the march toward higher evolutionary destinies, and we can make a conscious daily effort to continue this march. I will have, by the way, at the end, a list of the various paper references that I have used. This is paper 71. But we can also refresh our awareness and activate our extraordinary spirit endowments. Those three extraordinary spirit endowments are spiritual intuition, also known as faith insight, spiritual reason, our soul intelligence, and spiritual philosophy, the wisdom spirit realities, which I believe are the foundations of religious faith. I would like to go through those again with you. The spirit endowments that we possess are spiritual intuition, spiritual reason, and spiritual philosophy. And these are the foundations of religious faith or moral consciousness. And it is through these foundations that the soul of man reveals itself and demonstrates the potential divinity of its emerging nature by the characteristic manner in which it induces the mortal personality to react to certain trying intellectual and testing social situations. I will read this again. It is through religious faith that the soul of man reveals itself and demonstrates the potential divinity of its emerging nature by the characteristic manner in which it induces the mortal personality to react to certain trying intellectual and testing social situations. And it exhibits an inexplicable poise and sustaining tranquility, notwithstanding baffling diseases and even acute physical suffering. I repeat, and it exhibits inexplicable poise and sustaining tranquility, notwithstanding baffling diseases and even acute physical suffering. This is paper 101. The third thought is that we can renew our commitment to the unity of the service of God, embracing spirit unity. That we are all God's children and spiritual alike is what is called spirit unity. That we are all God's children and spiritually alike. And spirit unity is the cornerstone of sibling-centered service. Jesus taught the apostles that they had a mission to confront the afflicted and minister to the sick. In paper 141, Jesus told the apostles that they had a mission to comfort the afflicted and minister to the sick, and that they should minister to all who suffer the sorrows of human sickness, pointing out in particular the diseases of the flesh, those afflictions commonly regarded as physical sickness, and troubled minds, those non-physical afflictions which were subsequently looked upon as emotional and mental difficulties and disturbances. I would like to make a pause here to just reflect that we are facing a calamity that is affecting us, that is making us sick, but at the same time is bringing about a lot of mental disturbances in many of us: fear, panic, isolation, depression, uncertainty, and so on and so forth. So it's important that we look at this not only as a pandemic of of health, of physical health, but also of mental health. And the fourth aspect that I would like to share with you is that we would be wise to remember that disease is not some sort of man-made curse or unfair and disproportionate act of God, but instead, by and large, a consequence of the biologic adventure pursued by life carriers in the process of designing, testing, developing, and triggering of evolutionary human life in Urantia. This endeavor was far from perfect, as they tell us that throughout all of this biologic adventure, their greatest disappointment grew out of the diversion of parasitic bacteria and their auxiliary virus bodies on an extensive and unexpected scale, which caused many distressful diseases in the higher mammals, particularly in the more vulnerable human species. Furthermore, they discounted the difficulties involved in these developments because they knew that the subsequent admixture of the Adamic life plasm would so reinforce the resisting powers of the resulting blended races as to make it practically immune to all diseases produced. I'll read this again. The life carriers discounted all the difficulties involved in the emergence of bacteria and viruses because they knew that the subsequent admixture of the Adamic plasm would so reinforce the resisting powers of the resulting blended race as to make it practically immune to all diseases produced. And yet, hopes were doomed to disappointment owing to the misfortune of the Adamic default. We can remain confident in the Father's evolutionary plan for Urantia. There are, of course, certain compensations for tribulation, such as Michael's bestowal on Urantia. But irrespective of all such considerations, the later celestial supervisors of this planet express complete confidence in the ultimate evolutionary triumph of the human race and in the eventual vindication of our original plans and life patterns. Please allow me to read this again. We can remain confident in the Father's evolutionary plan for Urantia. I quote, and this is paper 65. There are, of course, certain compensations for tribulation, such as Michael's bestowal on Urantia. But irrespective of all such considerations, the later celestial supervisors of this planet express complete confidence in the ultimate evolutionary triumph of the human race and in the eventual vindication of our original plans and life patterns. Personally, I see many encouraging signs that this pandemic is already bringing about a positive shift in consciousness amongst many of us around all continents in Urantia. We take closer notice of the fragility of the well-being of our elders. We try to protect more our children and our spouses. We come across for the first time to some neighbors we had never seen. We watch overpopulated and overly polluted cities becoming calm and clean again. We take more time to notice our grocery shop assistants, our pharmacy assistants, and a myriad more of those that help us live a clean, healthy, and orderly life. We are invited to appreciate them more and be grateful to have them in our lives, because to have them makes us whole, and with them, our ecosystem carries on. Before us, there is a unique opportunity for planetary spiritual uplift, if we only seek to respond to current events surrounding the crisis by consciously inviting the Spirit to take the lead and guide us towards a strengthening of the bonds that unite us as humans. I repeat, before us, there is a unique opportunity for planetary spiritual uplift if we only seek to respond to the current events surrounding the crisis by consciously inviting the Spirit to take the lead and guide us towards a strengthening of the bonds that unite us as humans. Regardless of individual beliefs, preferences, origins, or qualities. United in love of life and ministry, where beauty, truth, and goodness are ever present in every decision, in every action, in every act of unselfish service we extend to others every day. Just like millions of other humans, our true Urantia heroes are battling and risking their own lives to treat and save others, to make possible that we have food on our tables and supplies in our larder, that our services run so that we can be connected and informed and take precautions and care for one another. In short, so that our ecosystem not only survives, but one day thrives again. Please allow me to invite you to rethink how we can respond to this crisis by inviting you to take action. First, make a daily decision of staying positive and propagating positive thinking amidst the current vicissitudes, challenges, suffering, and perplexities, especially to those of us who are more emotionally sensitive. Be diligent, responsible, and sensible in the analysis of information you find, receive, assimilate, distribute, and use. Staying away from conspiracy theories, magic cures, racist behaviors, and questionable sources of information. Remain frugal and make calm decisions based on reliable information. Avoid fear-mongering, panic behavior, unnecessary accumulation of food and medical supplies, and patiently support those who might be reactive to these tendencies. Take seriously the instructions and advice from our medical and government authorities, and act accordingly in order to reduce to the minimum possible the risk of becoming infectious, inadvertent spreaders of the disease, especially if you think you have no symptoms or very mild symptoms. But above all, be of loving service, especially to the most vulnerable and at higher risk, conscious that our individual and joint actions will make all the difference in not only fighting the pandemic, but staying hopeful and confident in the future. I would like to finish this by reading two excerpts from the Urantia book. The first is from paper 101. The divine spirit makes contact with mortal man, not by feelings or emotions, but in the realm of the highest and most spiritualized thinking. It is your thoughts, not your feelings, that lead you Godward. The divine nature may be perceived only with the eyes of the mind, but the mind that really discerns God hears the indwelling adjuster, is the pure mind. Without holiness, no man can see the Lord. And such inner and spiritual communion is termed spiritual insight. Such religious experiences result from the impress made upon the mind of man by the combined operations of the adjuster and the spirit of truth, as they function amid and upon the ideas, ideals, insights, and spirit strivings of the evolving sons of God. And finally, from paper 26, and this is particularly important as we face these challenges. That, then, is a primary or elementary course which confronts the faith-tested and much-traveled pilgrims of space. But long before reaching Havona, these ascendant children of time have learned to feast upon uncertainty, to fatten upon disappointment, to enthuse over apparent defeat, to invigorate in the presence of difficulties, to exhibit indomitable courage in the face of immensity, and to exercise unconquerable faith when confronted with the challenge of the inexplicable. Long since, the battle cry of these pilgrims became, in liaison with God, nothing, absolutely nothing, is impossible. Thank you very much. And with that, I just put in there the references of the papers that I used for this presentation, and I open the floor to questions.
Luis, please, can you stop sharing? Thank you. Any questions? comments?
May I?
Yes, Sebastian.
Thank you, Luis, for this great presentation and these great ideas. As always, many very good points and well researched and supported. And I agree. This is an opportunity. This is a situation that can unite us as we face this, because this is a situation that is happening all over the world right now, and even if it's something critical, it gets all of us thinking about the same thing. And I cannot help but remember one part of the Urantia book that says it is in a crisis that the true character of an individual is revealed. But I think this also applies worldwide, that it will reveal as a society maybe how we work, and also of course at an individual basis. I think that the response is different. It is not necessarily everywhere positive. For some people will respond with fear, with more egoism, individualism, like, oh, I need to take care of myself and I don't care about the rest. But for many other people, and I would hope for the majority, it will also stimulate, probably also with help from above, feelings of solidarity and altruism. For example, as you think about helping neighbors that might be in quarantine or might be old to go to offer help to shop for them, and so on and so forth. The nurses, doctors, people in the supermarkets, markets, and so on. So it's something that unites us, something that reveals the good thing in humanity. And from that perspective, I also agree that it's a good opportunity to, as the title of your presentation suggests, to uplift the consciousness as a global level. Done.
Thank you, Sebastian. Yes, it's been particularly here in Europe recently, very, very recently. You and I both are in Europe, and for those of us of our family here that are not in Europe, it's been pretty dire here. People not being able to leave their homes, people dying by the hundreds every day in countries like Italy, which is a few 100 kilometers from here, has been a really eye-opener for a lot of people. Parents having to stay at home with their children, people struggling to really see how they're going to make ends meet, particularly those that are less financially stable. A lot of people that are becoming sick by being available to service others has really prompted a lot of people to start realizing that actually that ecosystem that I referred to in my presentation is something that is very alive and very present in our daily lives, and that without it, everything clogs up, stops, and life as we know it can no longer be. And so what I find is that many people are taking notice, as Luca Perrier had just written on the chat. Ecologists can be very happy. I think our planet, in a way, is benefiting in a kind of a strange way from all of these that we are witnessing. This pandemia is forcing us to slow down and stop, as I was suggesting in my presentation, and actually question a lot of the things that we have been and that we are and that we want to be, for our own sake and for the sake of our own ambitions and our own goals and our own dreams and our own desires. And it's forcing us to start thinking that actually everybody else's well-being is very relevant to my well-being. and that my responsibility and my actions will have an impact in theirs and their own well-being and futures. And I think on the other side of this crisis, we will see the emergence of a new, more positive consciousness in the planet that will make things change, and it will no longer be possible to continue with business as usual. This will challenge our economic systems, this will challenge our social systems, this will challenge the way we govern, the amount of money that we have put on social care and health care. One of the major problems in countries like Italy, for example, is lack of investment in the healthcare sector for a very long time, because people always relied on science that said that we were so overpowerful to fight any disease and that we were going to be fine. But we're realizing that that is not the case. So it's challenging us almost at every level, in every front, in every walk of life. And I believe that this will make us stronger and bring us closer together, at least at many different places in our planet. And this hopefully will contribute to the spiritual uplifting of our planet.
Thank you, Luis. That was really a very good presentation. I wanted to underline here that we are talking about this situation. I think that we really need to be aware, and I really am kind of, I don't want to be pessimist, and I don't want to really scare anybody, but I think that the responsibility that we all have confronting this virus is not only in some places. I mean, we are in Israel now, and it's the same situation as in Europe. We are ahead of you in the United States and in South America, and maybe ahead of some other continents because they don't have the chance to really, you know, do the test to see if people are really carrying the virus. But this is something that is going to be really in the whole world without any doubt. And I, you know what you say, Luis, is our responsibility to really look after others. Like, you know, one of the reasons, beside that Italy has also a very, very large old population, is that they didn't really hear the government the first time that they say you should stay home, not socialize, avoid really to spreading the virus. And sadly, in the United States, in some parts of South America, people are doing the same. They're not listening and they think, oh no, we're going to be okay. And that's not the case. So I really, really, how can I say that? I really beg everybody to be responsible on that, really hear, follow what, because this is just the beginning of something that is going to be huge. And of course, I see also the you know, the positive side of the positive effects of that, of this kind of, I mean, I see all the videos from people really singing every night on the balconies in Italy, in Spain, in France. Here also at the 6 p.m. we all go out and shout for all the medicine, the sanitary people working really very hard to hold this together. It's not possible. But our duty is really to try to slow down the spreading of the virus, the contagious to the other people. And that we only can do by really staying at home and really listening what people are saying. That's our duty. And of course, I think it's fantastic when we can really support in this way via Zoom. I mean, everything is really switching in online platforms, in Zoom, in, you know, all the lessons all around the world. That's really huge. But don't underestimate what is going on. We really need to look after ourselves, after the others, and of course help whenever we can for those people, the older ones that really, or the vulnerable ones that cannot go to really shouldn't go out and do groceries and that stuff. So please, yeah, look after yourself and others. Thank you.
That is a very, very valid point, Sandra. You know, everything I read suggests that this is going to get much worse before it gets any better. I have just read the comment that we have from Luca that is not going to last long. Unfortunately, we are not sure about that. Everything that we know so far suggests that very draconian and swift action like the one that China took, and to some extent what South Korea did, made it possible for them to leave the pandemia or the epidemic for a period of 3 to 4 months. But many countries in Europe, and as Sandra very well is pointing out, in Latin America and in North America, and to a certain extent in Africa, I'm not really sure about the case in Australia, New Zealand, because they've been very swift also closing their borders and so forth, suggests that we didn't take it seriously and that we thought it was something that was happening in Asia and it was gonna be contained, and unfortunately misinformation did not help. And this is why I also make a very important point about staying really wise around the information that is circulating around. There's a lot of misinformation, there is a lot of confusing facts, so supposed facts that we should not follow. We should be very diligent in understanding who we are reading, what we are reading, and try to prepare for the worst. As someone that has a background in business and finance, I can also tell you that the economic slowdown and recession that we're going to face is going to be perhaps the worst that we will see in our lifetimes. And we don't really know how long that is going to go for. Everything suggests that it's not going to go for very long, hopefully not as long as it was in 2008, because we don't have a crisis with the financial system like we did in 2008. But certainly hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people are going to lose their jobs. Economic activity will decline, and it will take a long time to pick up, even as governments throw money at the problem. So that's why I'm suggesting to be frugal, to be mindful, to revisit everything that we are and have been and how we've been living our lives, to also take a closer look at our priorities and our goals and ambitions in life, and try to welcome this period of isolation and slowing down as an opportunity to go beyond just what we as individuals or as families would like to do, but start looking at the system as a whole and see what can be changed as a result of all of this, so that we can rebound from this crisis more quickly as well. Thank you, Sandra.
May I speak? Hello, everybody. I'm really happy to report that everybody that I have reached out to, elderly people or even friends who are immunodeficient or who have cystic fibrosis, things like that, I've reached out to them all to know if they need anything, and across the board, everybody has said to me that my neighbors, my family, everybody's taking care of me. Thanks, but no thanks. So I'm really happy to be able to report that all these people that I know of, in any case, are well taken care of. So ultimately, the only thing I can do for them right now is call them up, have conversations with elderly people who are alone, who have absolutely nobody. So keep them busy by calling them, having conversations about other things than the coronavirus, and keep their spirits up and serve them in that way.
Thank you, Minu.
That's wonderful, Minu, and I think it's something that we all should be doing. Somebody was asking me yesterday, a personal friend, what else can I do? And I said, well, apart from following guidance from governments and medical experts and so forth. What you can also do is inform yourself better and try to speak with people about the importance of doing what you are doing. Many of us are taking things lightly, following the comment that Sandra gave us, because we really don't know. And a lot of people that I know don't want to know because they panic and they become afraid. And it is precisely with those people that panic and become afraid and therefore do not want to inform themselves that we have an opportunity to be of service, that we have an opportunity to embrace them, to have the difficult conversations with them, to share things, reassuring them that things are going to be all right. I, for example, had a conversation with somebody that was telling me that this had been engineered somewhere because of some conspiracy theory. And this is also why I wanted to share with people that we know how bacteria and viruses emerge in Urantia, because this is the Urantia book. And that this is, even though there might be some theories that suggest that humans have been trying to manipulate this and release it into the world and blah, 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 we have been exposed to this from the beginning of times. And we know that many, many species have died as a consequence of epidemia. And so staying informed and sharing quality, reliable, trustworthy information with as many people as we possibly can and asking them to do the same will help us be better informed, fight misinformation, fight hysteria, panic buying, because by the way, panic buying is happening for toilet paper in the world because some person spread a rumor in some place in China, because in some special place in China there was going to be a shortage of toilet paper for 2 weeks. And that made some people in China start going panicky about buying toilet paper. And then you find people in Australia pulling out a knife to somebody because they are taking their loo rolls. We lose that sense of reality and what is happening, and there's no indication whatsoever in the world that there will be a shortage of paper and that therefore we should start stocking toilet paper. But this is how we are. This is what we are. We are also that animal, that chemical and physical entity that reacts to hormones and emotions that will do things that are not right. And that's why my call is for looking at things from the spirit and trying to embrace, particularly those that are more difficult to embrace because of their own profiles, because of their own tendencies, and try to extend loving service to them in everything we do for them and with them.
Yes, Doreen.
Oh, good morning here. I'm Doreen Hain from New Jersey, right on the Hudson River. And I love what everybody is saying. And I really am so thrilled that you're having this 24-hour connection with the world. Now, what you're saying is correct. And there's, people who will panic and other people will be able to sustain the changes. But here, there are lines waiting and buying up guns and bullets because the National Guard is coming out. This is not something very usual in our country. And that sends a very negative message. Now, I live in a building with about 119 condos. And they're always, it's big. I live in the district where financial district, right across, it's Goldman Sachs and all the big brokerages. And it's a wonderful neighborhood. It's right across from the city. But I would tell you that it's very difficult for people to survive because, number one, they're isolated. So we could have all the best intentions of calming people down, but they're in their apartments, they're locked in, and they're scared. So the concierge downstairs said to me, she said, I've never seen anything like it. So many people in this building are panicking. Most of them are from India and Asia. That's who live here now. And what's happening is that to feast on uncertainty, but they don't have that ability. They come mostly from Asia and they have a different culture and they're walking around with masks. They're stocking up with as much food as they can. people are panicking, but you don't see them. So the only ones that I do see outside are children, and people walk the dogs, and it's lovely because it's life, and the sun comes out and people are running and playing. But then again, that's only the little ones. Well, not everybody is dying from the virus. I have a good friend, he's a medical doctor in Massachusetts. And of course, when a patient comes in with something, now they quarantine the people in his clinic because one nurse let in somebody with the disease, and he said not to do it, and she did it anyway. And now she got the virus, and the rest of the clinic has to shut down. So there are people who, even in the healthcare system, that are affected, and several hundred nurses, they said, had to be quarantined as well. It's so interesting. I received a note the other day in my door, and I don't always go out every day, maybe every other day, but I want to support the small businesses that have stayed open. So I saw a note, and it said to seniors, and of course I'm a senior, and there's not many here. Maybe there's, I don't know, 10 at the most in this whole building that are seniors. Well, it said, and I don't know the person, it's a couple of doors down from me, and she said, or he, if you need anything, I will be glad to shop for you, to get whatever you need. It was like the most heartwarming thing. Wow, there are still decent people around that are so kind. I had to call her up and say, this is wonderful, thank you so much. Well, years ago when we had Hurricane Sandy, we were right in the heart of it, and the river came right up halfway into our lobby and hitting the windows with all kinds of debris. Well, I would say to you, because there were so many young people here, they all pulled together. They came from other towns. Everybody took somebody into their apartment, let them bathe, because we did have electricity and most didn't. So under different conditions where, yes, people do come together and they do help each other, and they're most kind under duress. But on the other hand, as soon as it was over, everybody went back to not talking to one another in the elevators. It was like normal, back to normal, and I guess that is life. But it's wonderful that we can share our thoughts and our experiences, and we just have to wait. But for myself, intellectually, I understand, but I don't listen to any news anymore. I just maybe at the top of the hour, because it's constant brainwashing, bombarding people with negativity, fear. It is demoralizing, they're scared. And so a while ago, I did turn it off, and I got rid of my TV as well. And I said, I'm not going to listen, because I understand, and I have a really good sense of where I'm going and what's going to happen. And it doesn't matter to me at this point. But your body speaks differently. It's a funny thing about anxiety. My head says one thing, my body starts, oh my God, why am I feeling this way? That's why I have to turn everything off. And it's wonderful to have this conversation because it's uplifting, it's positive. We all study, this revelation, which I know God is directing me every day. Every day, the consciousness is there. It's extraordinary how it has changed and filled my life that I don't have to overreact. But I thank you anyway. I'll stop now and let other people speak, but there is so much to share, and I appreciate all of you for participating.
Thank you, Doreen. Nice. Anyone else? Jeannie, go ahead.
I just wanted to thank Luis. I thought your presentation was terrific. I wish I could just sit and go through it again. And I wish you could post it somewhere. And I particularly wanted to recall that your point that I can't say very well, but just that the thought adjuster is our pilot, and that's what we have to follow, and that is what each one of us knows about, which the vast majority of the population is not aware that we each have a pilot, and that, you know, our job is to just, as much as possible, stay in touch with our thought adjuster and get there, whatever it takes, get there. Don't get freaked out about the other stuff. You know, just, you know, we're so lucky we have this. And I just thank you so much for inspiring us to be, you know, reasonable about what we're facing. Thank you so much.
No, it is my pleasure, and thank you for your kind words. I mean, you just got to the core of the thing. You know, at the end of the day, a positive shift in spiritual consciousness is nothing but us being more steadfast and more responsive to the calling of our thought adjuster, really. And the way this translates, sometimes when I speak with people, students, fellow students of the Urantia book, sometimes people struggle to really understand the connection between being attuned with or to our thought adjuster and doing something in real life. It seems to them as if this is something that is happening somewhere in the realms of the mind. And what I say to them is, well, it's just simply about letting those positive feelings and positive inspirations guide your behavior, and resist to be reactive to your emotions only. Your emotions are there for a purpose, and they serve a purpose for you as well. So do not neglect them, embrace them, and learn to coexist with them. But also learn to let the driver, the thought adjuster, to be the one that is guiding you most of the time, so that hopefully we make a habit of responding ever more with an attitude of service, an attitude of all the different virtues that we know are encompassed in the fruits of the Spirit, and that particularly at the end of the day, we respond with the primary response, which is a loving response that is yielding truth, beauty, and goodness. And when we just follow that inner call that is telling us, be patient, be tolerant, be kind, be strong, be there, be present, slowly but surely, what we bring to the world is being brought to the world by everybody else, and then that's how this consciousness uplifts. That's how we spiritually uplift, I believe.
Thank you, Luis. Do you want to close your presentation?
I think Jeannie just wanted to say something else quickly.
I don't know if I should say this, but I've, in the last years, I mean, the virus that's been spreading is hatred. I mean, before this virus ever came around, I don't know if anybody else feels it, but certainly I feel it here. And I mean, this has been a terrible thing in our society. I think it's been much worse than this coronavirus. And if this is just some way to stop all that hatred, I'm glad for it. That's what I'm saying.
I share your view. I somehow feel that in the history of our planet, this virus is coming at a time where we were our most divided, our most radicalized, our most antagonized by a variety of forces that we just allowed to develop and emerge, by the result of a number of things and actions that we undertook over several hundreds of years before to have the systems that under which we live be the way they are. And that's why I think this will be a shift in the world, that suddenly we are realizing that it doesn't matter how much money you have, you can still get coronavirus. It doesn't matter how safe you thought you were, you're still very fragile and very vulnerable. And so are millions around you. And that we need to change the way we're doing things to bring everyone else up, because the system is integrated. And in this ecosystem, parts that fail, the whole system will fail. With that, I say thank you to everyone for your participation, for listening to what I had to share with you. I hope it was moderately relevant and useful to some of you. And I will be sending the presentation to those who are interested. I guess I will coordinate that with Jeannie and Antonio. And yeah, I look forward to receiving any more questions via email or any other way. If you have any further questions, thank you very much again, and God bless.
Thank you, Luis. Minu, do you want to say just 30 seconds, please?
Yeah, I just wanted to underline the fact that our thought adjuster is exactly that. But we have to offer to our thought adjuster the thoughts, feelings, and emotions that we have that sometimes, despite all of our faith, we can't get over. Like things like Jenny mentioned about hatred. We get angry at those who are hateful, and we sometimes have ugly feelings about those people. So what I'm trying to say is, let's not forget to offer to our thought adjuster what we would like to change within ourselves. Things like, you know, those who are in conspiracy theories, who are being hateful on the internet, to not react ourselves with anger towards them, and to offer to our thought adjuster the opportunity to adjust our way of thinking in order to do better.
Thank you, Minu. Thank you, Luis, Jeannie, and everyone. We will take a 5 minutes rest, and next we will have a presentation by Alice Wood. Take a break, please.